Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and welcome to another deck mod tutorial. Today we are going to be talking about repainting or adding paint to your tarot deck. So in this video, I'm going to do a little tutorial and show you how I go about adding layers of paint to these cards. So hopefully it will pick up on camera, but I have added metallic paint in various colors to these cards to give them a shimmer, and I'm not sure how much this is going to catch on camera. If you can kind of see it here in his belt, we have it in the little flecks of metallic in the in his materials here. Again, just little touches here and there. For him, I just did the copper accents. I'm still actually working on that one. Need to set that one aside. This one, I did the, added all of the little copper touches to his cloak. And I also added a pearlescent shimmer to the clouds, as well as touching up here on some of the greens. Hopefully you can see that metallic. It is designed to blend in and only catch the light, so I'm not actually changing the coloration of the cards. I'm just overlaying it with some metallic paint. So here I did clouds, did some of the rocks, the circle, and little bits of her clothing. I need to keep moving it, but if I don't move it, I don't think it's going to catch. So in this one, I did the bird, accents of gold on her outfit, and the clouds. There you can kind of see it catching in the light there, and of course it did some of the rock. Here's the star that I have done, and I did the water, the stars, the moon. So hopefully that'll show up. All of the, you can kind of see it in the water there. See how it's shimmering? Hopefully that's showing up on camera. Also in the leaves, in her pictures. So here is another one. Again, the stars, some of the rock, little accents on her and the book. And this is my favorite one that I've done. In this one, I did a lot of the greens. You can see the green here in the rock, the little face down here, the flowers, the these flowers up at the top. Hopefully it's catching. Can you see that shimmer where everywhere I've overlaid the shimmery paint? Here's the Hermit, and I did his lantern. You can see it glows when it catches the light. Also the moon, little accents on his cloak and the rock face here. You can see that picking up. See, all of that is overlaid paint, and that's what's making it shimmer like that. This is another one of my favorites, the Empress, and she has lots of gold touches on her so that she shimmers here, and all of these little accents on her dress are also overlaid in gold. And then of course some of the greenery around her. Here's our Fool, and I've done his cloak, his staff, some of the green on the ledge, and some of the clouds. Hopefully you can see that catching up. And then we have the last one that I've done, and mostly on this one I just did the rocks and the greenery. So you can see hopefully here, I don't know if you can see it down like in the spirals. This one's a little bit harder because the tone really is quite similar, so it really only catches in the light. And then you can compare that to, because I think I put that other card. So these are just upside down, all the other cards that I have yet to paint. But as you can tell, I didn't actually change the, I haven't changed the colors. I've just added those metallic accents to the cards so that when they catch the light, they shimmer. And it really just kind of makes the cards magical. So I thought today that we would just take a look at how I did that. I'm going to do, I think 2, maybe 3 cards, depending on how long it takes. And I will show you the whole process. So let's go ahead and switch on over to my crafting table and get started. Okay, let's talk real quick about the supplies, and then I'm actually going to move all of this and we're going to zoom way in because this is very detailed work and I want you to be able to see it. So of course I have my cards to be painted. I've got 2 out here, but honestly this is a really long process, so I don't know that we'll get through more than 1. So the majority of what I'm using is metallic paints. Now I think that you could probably use any sort of acrylic paint, but I like the shimmer effect that the metallics give, which is kind of what I'm doing to this whole deck, is adding that metallic accent to the cards. So I also have some like pearlescent white. I have some blacks, golds, of course, greens, coppers, browns, blues. This selection was one that I accumulated for my Crystal Visions Tarot, which is why we have some of these bright colors here, the pinks, the purples, and the blues. And then I added in some of the more natural colors, the greens, the browns, the coppers, for when I started doing the Druid craft. So these are relatively inexpensive. I think they are $1 or maybe less at the craft store. You can get them at Walmart. They are just plain metallic paint. So that is what I will be using for this process, and I'm actually going to move it out of the way so it's not hopefully blocking. Maybe I should put it over here so it's not blocking the little bit of sunlight that we're getting today, not much. I have just a small cup of water for washing my brushes in between, some regular paper towels, and then an assortment of very thin brushes because this is a very detailed and honestly labor-intensive process, which is why it's taken me so long to do it. So I'm gonna try to maybe get us a bit more light, and then I'm gonna way zoom in so that we can see this process up close and personal. Okay, so I brought in some better light for us, I hope, and I have zoomed in on my card. So generally what I do is I do one color at a time, so I decide what color I wanna work with first. And I think for this one, so I think about what I want to accent in the card. That is the first thing that I do. So I want to accent these little yellow flowers. I want to accent these white flowers. I want to accent our 9 pentacles. I want to do some accent on her glove and the delicate knotwork on her dress, maybe a little bit of the bird, and then I want to add some pearlescent to her dress as well. And we might add maybe some texture to the branches as well, but I generally do one color at a time. So I just take whatever colors I'm going to accent. I decide which color I'm going to work with first, and it really doesn't matter. If I have, in general, I do the greens last because there's a lot of green on this deck, and then I can go through and accent, you know, places in the rocks, places in the growth here. So that's kind of the thing that I tend to do last. And hopefully this light isn't going to cause such a glare that I can't actually see what I'm doing. Okay. So I think maybe what we'll start with is, let's go ahead and start with some gold. So I just have metallic gold here. And I'm gonna do the accents on her dress to start with. Now generally, because I'm using such a teeny tiny amount of this paint, I give it a good shake. And then most of the time, whatever gets flopped into the lid is usually plenty. So you're not gonna be ending up using much paint here. This is, like I said, very detailed process. So I'm gonna pick a brush. And I want a very, very fine brush, but one that I can have good control over. So sometimes I kind of test it to see what I think. This one actually might be better. Although that's pretty thick. This one's super thin. I think the super thin one I use for this delicate work here. You can certainly repaint a card and change the color, but I'm not That's not my intention with this deck, is not to change the color, but just to pull in the accents. And I need to pull this a little bit closer to me. And I'm gonna hope that you guys are gonna be able to see this. I know this is gonna be difficult for me to do on camera, so I'm just gonna try my best. And hopefully you can bear with me. So you can see I'm just very carefully going over the knotwork in the dress. But basically I'm just following the art that's already there. Not being able to see very well. This is not going to be a great process to do on camera. I'm just going to have to resign myself to that. Because it's so detailed and I really need to be able to, maybe if I put this over here so I stop reaching across the camera. It's very difficult to see this knotted work here. Some of this, I think I said I wasn't going to babble through the whole card, but maybe I am. Some of the areas are easier to do than others. So sometimes this intricate detailed work here is quite difficult. It's hard for me to see. I'm probably getting to be too old to be doing this kind of stuff. Or I need to get some glasses or a magnifying glass or something, but anyway, it's I hope this is picking up on camera. Anyway, it's this fine detail work is kind of hard to do, but just adding some of the accents, which you'll see here when I get to like the dress and things like that. Sometimes that's a little bit easier because I'm not trying to follow a pattern like I am here. This was kind of a hard card to start with. I don't know why I decided to do this one on camera. Probably should have picked one that didn't have such fine detail work in it, but that's okay. And then I kind of pick it up and see, did I miss any areas? Because I see I did. Sometimes, and I think I'm laying paint down, I'm not. I'm not sure if that's even going to show up on camera. You can kind of see it there. So I repainted that. I shouldn't say I repainted because I'm actually not repainting. What I'm doing is adding detail, right? I'm not repainting. And of course, generally, I'm listening to YouTube videos while I'm doing this, but today I'm trying to concentrate. So, now I can see those hints of the pentacles there. It might not have been bad to actually have done them in a darker color. Like I probably should have used this rich espresso color. I don't know if you can see that there. That probably would have been better for these pentacles to make them stand out more. But now I've started with this, and I mean, I might be able to wipe it off. Let's just see, because we're just doing a trial here. I can perhaps if I take, nope, that's pretty much on there, and now I'm just kind of, I'm going to use just the tiniest bit of water and see if I can kind of scrub that off. Whoop, let's not take it off. Okay, so now I've managed to remove that. Sorry, probably shaking the camera. And I do have some gold flecks that have kind of rubbed around the card, but that's okay. That doesn't really bother me. So let's just see. Since I didn't like that color, let's try this darker one and see if that helps those pentacles stand out a little bit more. Again, just shaking it and using the, look how dark that is. Just using the little bit that's in the cap. I don't know why I keep sticking it on the left side, so I have to like reach across. So just getting a tiny bit. So let's see, maybe I should just do one this time, instead of 3. I don't even know if I'm in focus or you guys can even see. Oh yeah, that is going to show up much better, I think. So, see, if I wasn't trying to do this on camera, generally I try to keep the color tones similar to what is on the card, and this is a darker color. So, I don't know why I tried to change it to a lighter color. Mr. Will Worthington picked it to be that color for a reason. And that's the other thing that I think is kind of important to note here, is that I'm not trying to change the artwork of this card, right? I love Will Worthington's artwork. All I'm doing is adding to it. So I'm adding my own little accents to it. And so it kind of becomes this collaborative effort that Mr. Worthington knows nothing about because he has no idea who I am. But I do think that it's important to note that this is not like a process of me trying to defile this card or this deck, or trying to undermine the artist's work. In fact, it's kind of a way of honoring it, right? Because this is a lot of time spent with these cards in this deck. And again, like I said, apparently I'm going to babble through most of this video, but it's a way of kind of honoring it, of bringing his energy and his work together with my own. So I think that it's important to note that, because I think sometimes deck modification, and really this is a deck modification. I mean, it's not trimming, it's not edging, but it's, because I've already done that to this deck, but it is a deck modification. Yeah, I like that much better. I don't know if that's catching in the light, but anyway, I think that sometimes there's a misunderstanding when it comes to deck modifications, as if it is in some way, shape, or form defiling a deck or being disrespectful to the deck creator. And I think I have a whole video on this, actually. I think it was one of the first videos that I did, because I'm actually fairly passionate about this topic. But it's not, in my opinion, deck modification is not a defiant act. It is a creative act. It is a way of adding my energy and my intention to the deck, which is adding it to the creator's intention and creative efforts towards the deck. So again, like I just said, like I see it more of a collaborative effort. And like seriously, if you go to the store and you buy a pair of Nikes, right? And then you come home, or let's say Converse, because back in my day, sound like my kid who is back in my day whenever I say anything about my past, my childhood. But anyway, back in my day, we used to draw all over our Converse. And we drew all over our jeans. We drew all over everything, right? All over our clothes, all over our bodies. But we would go to the store and buy a pair of Converse, come home, take a Sharpie to them, and create our own designs on them. Now, that doesn't mean that we were, defiling the product. It doesn't mean that we were disrespecting Nike or the person who designed, that's not Nike, Converse, or that we were, that we were disrespecting the person who designed the shoe. We were just adding our own our own creative energies to it. And that is really how I feel about deck mods. Sometimes, particularly deck mods like this, but sometimes a deck mod is, it really is kind of a tactile thing, or it's more of a functional, you know, more of a functional thing, like cutting your lawn when it gets too big or something like that. But, you know, sometimes decks they're too big for me to work with, to handle. Too big to shuffle. And if a deck is too big for me to work with, then I'm just not going to work with it. And now in my mind, that is kind of disrespectful to the deck, because now I have this deck that I've bought and it's going to sit on my shelf and it's going to see no love because it's, you know, too big for me to work with, or whatever the case may be. And so by trimming it, I can turn it into something that I can work with, and then it will be able to be an active part of my tarot practice, which is really what most of my decks are for. I have very few decks just for collectible purposes. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, because I do definitely have some decks that I don't work with. But anyway, that is, now that I've finished the pentacles, that is, that looks much better, I think. Can see those a lot better. I don't know if that's going to pick up on camera, but anyway, that's just kind of that's my rant on deck mods. I want to add some of this brown to this little birdie here, and this is going to be like super detailed work. So I'm just going to get a little paint. And basically what I'm going to do, if you can see here, do you see all of the lighter whites, these streaks that are coming out in this dress? So if I just repaint this whole dress white, I'm going to lose all of that detail. So what I'm going to do is follow those lines, and actually this brush is too big, so I guess I'm going to go back to that smaller detailed brush because that one's making too big of a mess. And anyway, I'm just going to follow all of these white lines basically, and this is just going to add that pearlescent sheen to the highlights that are already in the card. So like I said, you can see I'm not changing the colors. I'm just adding. I'm adding to it. And there, hopefully, can you see, is it picking up? So I really only just highlighted a few areas of this dress. And generally, I found that less is more. So I'm just going to go in and add a couple of more light streaks to some of the areas that caught my eye, and that's pretty much it. And while I have the white, a lot of times I do the clouds, but in this particular card, I don't want the clouds to be front and center. I want her to be front and center. And then I'm going to add some pearl accent to these little flowers here. Just picking up again on those white or lighter areas that are already in the artwork. So now at this point, I'm going to go through and I'm going to find all these little touches of green on the branch, and I'm going to start with those. And I am just going to dab on, and this process is a little bit easier because I'm just kind of dabbing on that hint of color, because again, I'm not trying to overpaint this deck. I'm just trying to add those little sparkly accents. And again, the green is kind of easy because it's just dabbing it on in dots. So I think that this card is done because I don't want to overdo. The whole point of this is, like I said, not to recover the whole card in paint, but to just highlight some accent points. So I think that is pretty. I think that works really well. I'm not sure if it's all picking up, but so now maybe what I'll do, because I pretty much babbled through that whole process and we only used a handful of colors, maybe I'll just do a speed up on a second card, and then you can kind of see how that process goes without me interrupting every 5 seconds to babble about this, that, or the other. So that was a look at how I actually add paint or overlay paint onto my cards to create these sort of gold gilded accents on my cards, these shimmery accents. You can see here, this is the first card that we did. This was the 9 of Pentacles, or is the 9 of Pentacles. So you can see all that shimmering catching in her dress and in the pentacles, which was the main things that I wanted to highlight. Of course, the greenery is also shimmery, but it's not catching up on the light right now. And then we did the speed up version of our Queen of Swords, and with the clouds and all of the accents on her dress. Look at her dress shimmer. How awesome is she? And the gray in her hair, which I absolutely love. So yeah, now she is, if I could do it slightly, see her shimmer? She's glowing. I love it. So that is a look at how I add paint to my cards. So I hope you enjoyed this deck mod tutorial and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.